Okay.
Okay, so I decided to do my final project on the price of insulin. I decided to do this because my best friend is a type 1 diabetic, so I already had like quite a bit of prior knowledge, and it just worked. Insulin is a hormone that is secreted by your pancreas, and it helps regulate your blood glucose levels. It's kind of something that we like take for granted. Like it's working so hard inside of you every day. Like every time you eat a meal, eat a snack, drink something with any sugar or carbs in it, it's bringing your blood sugar down and keeping it at a normal level so you can function correctly. Without insulin, you can suffer from hyperglycemia, which is like a higher blood sugar than normal, and it can cause weakness, confusion, shortness of breath, abdominal pain, and can cause a diabetic coma. It's said a lot that like having a high blood sugar is like really similar to like being drunk. Like it makes you feel like in that same sort of mindset, and it's just not good. And then hypoglycemia is even worse, which is low blood sugar. It causes like really bad fatigue, shakiness, confusion, can lead to loss of consciousness and death. In high school, like my best friend, whenever her blood sugar would get low, she would like have to like lay out on like our like history like floor and just like eat Skittles and like not be able to talk. Like it's bad. 1.25 million people are diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in America, and about 30 million people have diabetes, so it's like 29 million who have type 2. I focused more on type 1 just because type 1 is more like dependent on insulin. Like your pancreas can't produce any insulin or not enough for you to survive. It's inherited genetically, so there's like nothing you can do about it. There's no cure, like magic shot you can get. Whereas with type 2, it's when your body like develops a resistance to insulin, and like your pancreas is still producing it, and it can be controlled by like diet and exercise a lot more. Or a lot of people have to go to like the doctor and they just get one shot every month and then they're good. So it's like completely different than type 1 because you're like managing your blood sugar constantly. You have to watch everything that goes into your body. Insulin was discovered in 1922. Before the discovery of insulin, it was thought that the pancreas secreted a substance that affected carbohydrate metabolism, and they're not too far off because carbs have to do a lot with your blood sugar. But then a guy decided to take like 10 dogs, and he took all their pancreases out. And I thought this was kind of sad at first because it was like dogs, but like medically necessary or whatever. But he took the secretions from the pancreas, which we now know is insulin, and injected it back into the dogs, and like saw that it like regulated the blood sugar levels. So that's what they did for like about 10 years. They started using like cow insulin and pig insulin on humans, but it just didn't work. It was not a good deal. People had like antibodies to them and made them really sick. And then someone came up with like a synthetic human insulin, which they used until about 1980. And the difference between like the human insulin and what they use now is the human insulin is like a lot slower acting, and what they have now, they developed it in like 1980. And you can't take like meal corrections with human insulin, and that's why it's so much cheaper. But these are like the three main insulin companies, and that's how much a 10 milliliter vial is for each. And that's like super high price, obviously. But like when I was doing my research, I was like, okay, like that could be justified. Like how much does it cost to produce it? And I found out that the estimated cost to produce a vial of set insulin was anywhere from $2 to $10, which was like crazy to me. I still can't wrap my mind around why it's so expensive. But it is because it's monopolized by, like the industry is monopolized by 3 different companies. So the prices just keep getting higher and higher. But the companies have like the patents on them, so there's like nothing that anyone can do about it. This is the story I read that like really hit home, made me shed a couple tears, and like realize it's such a big problem. That's a picture of Alex Smith. He was diagnosed with type 1 in 2015 when he was 24, which is like a really late age to be diagnosed with type 1. But he struggled with it at first, like understandably, but then he like got it. He was fine. He was thriving in life. He like moved out of his parents' house, got a great job, had a girlfriend, and was like living his best life. And then in 2017, he was taken off his mother's insurance. She worked at a university, and they just weren't able to like cover him anymore. And he was a manager of like a restaurant chain, so he made like $40,000 a year, which isn't that much, but it still put him over the limit for Medicaid. And so he had no insurance, and his monthly costs for like insulin and all his supplies was over $1,000 a month. So he was working on paying that like just out of pocket, but obviously that's a lot of money. So he had to like ration his insulin, and it led to his death. He was discovered in his apartment by his girlfriend in 2017, just from rationing the insulin because it was so expensive. And like this isn't the only case of people who've died or had major health problems because of how expensive insulin is. Yale did a study with their health clinic, and about 25% of diabetics like admitted to having to ration insulin because of how expensive it is. And like obviously death is worst case scenario, but that's like 25% of 30 million people like with the possibility of death because insulin's so expensive. So why should you care? I kind of had a hard time like answering this question because for me it's like a moral thing. Like people are dying, like you should just kind of care. But it also like sets a precedent for other medications and stuff to just go higher. And there's not really a solution for like lowering the price of insulin. There's a lot of the talk is like very political, which I didn't want to get into, but like free healthcare and stuff, which is something like that everyone has to make their own opinion about, but that really is one of like the only like option to make insulin cheaper for everybody. And that's my presentation. Any questions? Thank you.